I wanted to do a meditation today based on specific section of the Torah, Parashat Vayakel, and Exodus 36, 6, that pasuk, that gives something completely unexpected, which is the dream of any fundraiser. Because Moses gives the order through the camp saying, let no man or woman do any work for contribution to the tabernacle. So the people were prevented from bringing additional contributions because the people gave enough. Can you imagine somebody saying, that's it, don't give anymore? So I wanted to work on that. And it's interesting because then there's a Rashi explanation, Be'amlaka, Aita Dayum Lechol HaMelaka, and the work sufficed for all the work that the work is repeated a few times. And there was enough, Dayenu. We know this word that is coming to us very, very soon. So I wanted to pay attention to that. When enough is enough in the landscape of generosity. And generosity is part of chesed, of loving kindness. And we know that chesed is balanced by gevura. If you don't know it, you're going to go to the Omer study and you're going to learn about it. So when too much is too much, what is it that makes giving too much? Is it an amount or is it quality? And I want to quote a dear and beloved teacher, Parker Palmer. I was part of a few of his retreats, and he also was a dear friend of Rav Zalman Schachter Shalomi. And he talks about ego stories and soul stories. Ego story is where we are looking for a personal benefit, when we focus on our achievements and we want recognition. The soul story is a deeper story. It's beneath the ego. It is connected to purpose and not to benefit. So the question becomes, and we know that we need to balance. It's not the ego is bad, the soul is good. That's the chesed gevura balance that we need to achieve. But when the desire to keep giving comes from the ego story and not from the soul story, there's a contamination to the field. And I want to bring this to personal relationships. When too much is just too much. When giving unsolicited advice, nobody asks us for that, and we give it because we think we owe it to the person. When we give too much attention, when too much attention is just spoiling, giving too much love, and sometimes also unsolicited, giving and more time and expecting the same amount of time to giving back to us, or attention given back to us. When we try to fix something because we believe it needs to be fixed and comes from our generosity, but nobody on the other side is thinking that this needs to be fixed. And when this really is about somebody else, or a situation that involves somebody else. So this brings me to the question, to the word that is used in the text, and then we use it Pesach, Dayenu. Dayenu, enough. When enough is enough in the giving. When the giving is given from the place of soul and purpose, and it's enough. And when we cross that enoughness, we enter into the requests of the ego that contaminates the field. Moses says, don't give anymore. Enough is enough. So I invite you to sit in a position that conveys alertness with the eyes closed. Usually it's with the back straight. We can put our hands on our lap, facing down or facing up. And let's use the breathing as a trusted anchor to come back when the mind distracts us, because that's what the mind does. The mind generates thoughts. The thoughts generate stories. The stories generate feelings. And those are the narratives. And the narratives create patterns. But if we allow ourselves during a meditation to separate ourselves from all that incredible creativity, and we say to the thoughts, we say to the feelings, we say to the narratives, thank you, I see you, but not now. Let me come back to the breath. But I'm doing today a double thing, allowing ourselves to pay attention to our generosity, to the generosity that comes from the soul, but sometimes just plays the trick to go into the ego and is looking for something. And that creates a story. So I invite us to see what percolates for us with this teaching that I'm calling when enough is enough. It's okay. There's no need to give more. Because whatever you gave from your soul. And it is what was needed. So to look to whatever is emerging, the stories that are emerging regarding this. And look at the stories. Look at the narratives. Look at the patterns. And come back to the breath. Come back to the breath. Do not engage with the stories that this teaching is provoking. Look at them. They become part of the Torah of the inner soul. Look at them. We can look at them even with sense of humor, with curiosity. And we separate ourselves from the production of the mind by coming back to the breath again and again, again and again. Let's keep doing this for a few minutes in silence. I'm going to call you back. Noticing the thoughts, noticing the feelings, noticing the narratives, coming back to the breath. Yadara, 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 yadara. Yara, 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 I invite you to take a deep, deep inhale, hold it for 2 seconds, and exhale with a sigh. And another one. I invite you now, with your eyes closed, to visualize exactly what you see with your eyes open, as if you would have x-rays. You can see the screen. You can see me on the other side of the screen. You can see exactly where you are. Very slowly, at your own pace, you open your eyes. If you need to wash your face with your hands, stretch, you do it. And here we are. Here we are with our own story of generosity, the inner spiritual self saying our name and saying, you know what? Don't go overboard. Because if you go overboard, maybe it means that there is another agenda. Again, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, IJS, for this building the Mishkan that you do through your work. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Much gratitude to you, Marcelo. Thank you so much. Friends, we seal this beautiful practice today, creating space for those who are in mourning or observing a yard site. And I saw in the chat there's a number of people who are reciting Kaddish today. If it's your custom to join in Kaddish, you're welcome to do so. You can put the name or the names of those who are honoring today in the chat now or after you recite Kaddish. If you're not reciting Kaddish, please stay present for a few minutes to support those who are, and invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitkadal,
Yitkadash,
Rabba, Nalmad,
Tifra, Irite,
Chayechon, Yom
V'chayechem,
Yitakol B'Yisrael,
Chaye
Gala,
Tachol,
Bizman,
Israel, Hagala,
Name, Ishmei, Rabba, Narash, Maya, Yach, Shabbat, Ba'ar, Bishman,
Arbi, Shmon, Tar v'yetalev v'yetalal shvei
Ilan,
Shalom
kol birkat
Logim
Amiran, Ba'alma,
Amiran
Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya,
Yehi
Shani
Shlama
Lamin,
Rabba Min Shemaya Ima Leinu Shalom
Shalom
Yisrael
Bimrama, Shalom Aleinu, Kol
Say
Yisrael,
Shalom
Kol Yoshvei
All
Tevel,
Yisrael
Amen.
Amen.
Yaakov Yoshvei Tevel Vimru. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much to Rachel Hugo for holding our tech space today, to Karen Ellis-Freed for sponsoring this practice today in honor of her mom's 90th birthday, Honey Ellis. Yom Haledet Sameach to Honey on reaching this new decade. And thanks so much, Karen, for supporting us. For those who might be leaving us now, I want to let you know we're going to line up for teachers for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, joined by Rabbi Daniel Raphael Silverstein, be joining us from Israel. Cantor Karen Spencer Shapiro on Wednesday. Yiska Smith will be joining us from Jerusalem on Thursday. And Marita Anderson will lead us to sit into Shabbat this coming Friday. So hope you can join us for any or all of those. And just a reminder, if you can't join us live, all of our sessions are live streams as well on YouTube. All the recordings are posted there as well. So you can join us to practice anytime at your convenience. And we turn one of these sessions each week into a podcast we call Jewish Meditation for everyone. And you can get that wherever you get your podcasts. So please spread the word about that as well. You are welcome to join us for conversation with Rabbi Marcelo Bronstein. You can put questions in the chat. I'll keep an eye out for that. Just write question all in caps. Or just share reflections on what you noticed in your experience today in the meditation. And see, there's a question right away from Lauren. I'm going to address that or bring that question in. Lauren's asking, is the teaching about the middle way, everything in moderation? And before you answer that, Marcelo, I just want to, we'll just do a little review about the teaching. And then I'm particularly interested in asking you about the ego, about meditation, the ego and the soul. We're speaking about the ego and the soul and kind of differentiating between them, right? So I wanted to invite you to first, just for starters, to, if you wouldn't mind repeating what you said about, like, how do we know when we're in that ego, and how do you know when we're in, connected to the neshama, to the soul?
So this comes, I want to give full credit to my beloved teacher, Parker Palmer. I participated with him in a few of his retreats, where also I had some training.
Mm-hmm.
And, the ego doesn't have good PR. The soul gets the best PR, but they're both necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But the ego is the one who is activated when we're looking for recognition, when we feel insecure, when we have to put ourselves, when we have to make a mark, when we want something in return, when we want a benefit. The soul is the one who is the deeper story under the ego. There's something under the ego. It is beneath, it's connected to purpose and not to benefit, which means I'm not at the center of the story. Somehow in the ego story, I am at the center of the story. I want you to know how much I know. I want you to know that I can fix your problem. I want you to know, all that. The soul story, I'm removing myself from that. We could say, let's try to fix it together. It would be nice to look together into this problem. It's your purpose to fix it. Let's see what we can contribute into that. It's not about power. It's not about control. And we do both. Too much ego is based on insecurity. Why somebody, and we have plenty examples lately about ego stories. So that comes from there. And so I mixed two things today in the teaching. I mixed three things because I mixed the Torah, Rav Zalman, and Chesed and Gevura, and the balance between the two. Yes, it's about the balance, because always it's about balance, but it's always, I would say, where do I am departing from. Before the starting with Mark, we were making fun of a subway meditation with Rabbi Rachel Cowan, one of the founders of IJS. We were making fun of each other about how do we meditate in the subway. But one of the things that I realized is being close to the Express and 95th Street, that immediately as the Express came, I had a rush of urgency that to run, to go down. And then I stopped. Do I need to take the Express or not? Am I buying into this? So the same, I'm bringing that funny story to say, why am I giving? Where is this giving coming from? Do I expect something in return? This is really the purpose, to get something in return. I know that the person cannot do it, so I want to feel disappointed. I'm creating a narrative of abandonment. So there are so many things. If we could pay attention to the narrative that I'm creating, when giving.
So what's the connection with enoughness? To have a sense of enoughness there. Like I can discern that, this is coming from my ego and from my benefit, or I'm expecting a quid pro quo, I expect something back. But I guess my question is, if we're in that soul place where we discern that it's coming from the soul place, is there ever really this line of enoughness? Because really that seems to be an inexhaustible source of giving, right? If I can be in that place, then I can be almost like tzaddik-like, or saint-like, or like Mother Teresa, right? Or somebody who's giving and whose motive, let's assume that whose motive is as egoless as possible.
So let's assume.
Enough, yeah.
Yeah, let's assume.
Which I assume everybody here is at that. Everybody here is at that level. So let's
assume that when we are at that level, and as Rav Zalman used to say, when we were that Streimel, we are at that level. So we are at that level, meaning we want to give. We don't expect anything there, but we are not at that level all the time. Let's say it humbly. In the Torah, the conflict is resolved because God is saying, it's enough. Don't give it. But why to stress the enoughness? Why to stress the enoughness? Maybe when you're creating a sanctuary, we don't want more people to feel, or people to feel more important than others. I don't know. There is some danger that the Torah is putting into. If we don't say that enough is enough, there could be a problem. And I see that in, my world of psychology. When we want to give too much to those of us who are, parents, to the children. And then because we want to expect something in return. And, if they are teenagers, they are teenagers. They're riding the surf of the teenage life. They're not going to give us in return, because we give them unconditional life. Be ready for disappointment. So that's where we want disappointment. So there is a moment of enoughness. There's a moment of saying, okay, I'm giving. Sorry, there's something here on my phone. Okay, that's I should know, because if not, there's a word that I'm missing here. When we give too much, it's not empowering, but
depleting.
Giving too much to the kids. So I am taking part of their agency from them. because they're going to be dependent on enabling. Thank you.
So that would be
that was
case of like
that,
too much.
that was
too much
enabling.
Too much chesed.
Too much chesed.
Without the bound, setting the boundary of Gavur.
So we are enabling. So we're enabling, and we could say, "Look how generous I am." Enabling is toxicity.
Right.
But to know this is such a fine line.
Right.
It's such a difficult, fine line. That's why I love this teaching from the Torah. There is a moment of enoughness.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Pesach, we sing Dayenu, Dayenu, Dayenu. What is this song about enoughness?
Right.
It would have been enough.
Yeah, I appreciate that you're saying that it's coming from God, that God is saying it's enough. That is right. It's not the people who are discerning it's enough, or Moses is saying that's enough.
And
but
Moses
it's actually it's very powerful. Moses is saying it, but it's like because the work is done, right? And it's not. So let me circle back to the question of, how we work with. You said the ego has a bad, doesn't get the PR it needs, right? Discerning or working with, I should say that, just working with like this question of ego and soul moment to moment. That, I'm in my ego place. Oh, maybe I'm touching into a soul place. Shira is asking this question: how do I meditate? And Shira here is kind of I think, based on what you wrote, Shira, equating meditating with not having thoughts, which I don't think is really what we're talking about here. But how do I meditate and think about my relationship to my ego and my soul at the same time? It's a good question. Like, what are we striving to do in the meditation as we're sitting, noticing thoughts, noticing feelings, noticing sensation, in terms of, without getting stuck in this, like you invited us to, not getting stuck in the stories, but observing those stories and what they're telling us about our inner state, our soul.
It's knowing where are we departing from, and if we know where we're departing from, we are closer to know where is it that's really where we're going. Sylvia Boorstein said, that the mind is like the popcorn machine in a Saturday night movie theater, and it's pumping all the time, thoughts. But these thoughts create narratives, and these narratives create patterns of reactivity. So Viktor Frankl also said that between thought and reaction and feeling and reaction, there's this space in between. I call it the Bein Hashmashot, the twilight zone, the space in between. And the space in between is the space of the Dumya, the space of silence. I define that as my work. My work is trying to expand the space in between to listen to the Kol Mamadaka, the still small voice of the soul. The still small voice of the soul that may be saying to the ego that goes hand by hand, just shut up for a while. Just shut up. This is not about your insecurity. This is not about your childhood. This is not about this. This is about, just shut up for a while and let me be. It's okay. You're my friend. You're my brother. You're my sister. I love you. But this is not about that. Right. Maybe there's another possibility.
Well, maybe not shut up. Maybe just like take a seat over here on the bench for a little bit. How
sometimes I said, thank you. You're kinder than me. Sometimes
I don't know about that. Look who thinks he's so kind.
So, yes. So, because that's the issue. We're expanding the space in between to understand where we come from.
Right.
And when we know our narratives, we can ask the question, how do I want to show up in the world? Do I need to show up in the world from the place of narrative? Do I need to show up from that haser, that emptiness? Or maybe that's an old story. Maybe there is a new map. My wife has a beautiful, beautiful teaching that she built maps, soul maps, with her sister, and that's part of what she does in the retreats. Trying to find our neshamas in these maps, which are soul maps, because we are all the time, navigating. So it's about being, yes, Barbara says in the pause, being in the compassion of the narrative
Mm-hmm.
and asking the question, how do I want to show up?
Yeah.
Do I need to show up again from that narrative, or there is another choice? So, a la Mark, I would say to the narrative, Habibi, my dear friend, take a seat. I know that you're there. I think it's very important to our narrative to tell them, I know that you're there. You don't need to push. I
Mm-hmm.
see you. I hear you. Take a seat. Okay, let's see if there is another option
Mm-hmm.
to show up. Because if not, as Rabbi Freud said, we are in compulsion repetition all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing of this practice, this incredible practice, is to know our source and to be able to make changes and to see that there is an aspiration, a desire from the soul to appear in a different way. But we have training. We have training in our narrative. We have training in our parents.
Mm-hmm.
We have lived with them. They have also protected us. They have helped us. They're not all bad. Sometimes our parents, our stories help us to survive, to arrive here. Okay, Hapazit, take a seat, beloved narrative. Do I need you in this moment?
Right.
Maybe there's another choice. And that's for me the Ubacharta Bachaim, the choose life.
That's also, I think that is treating the ego with respect and not being driven by the ego, as you were
Exactly.
describing before, right?
Because we all need it, we all
Right.
need it to do what we are doing.
Right.
Here,
so let me interject one quick question before we end, because it feels like important that Holly raised, which many people might relate to. When one feels less than or insufficient because of not being able to, quote, give enough because of financial constraints, how does one embrace that giving a little from the soul is enough, as opposed to how much? I think that's a really important point.
I think
And I
it's
think that's, go ahead, Marcelo.
No, I think it's a very important point because we live in this American Idol society and money and the whole thing. So it's value, that is value, and that's multi-mega millionaire, then, I don't want to get there. Okay, I'm derailing myself. So that's the ethos.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ethos of the time. We are all enough, and we are all never fully enough. We are all there. So to be able to see, okay, what is it that I have to contribute? How can I contribute? And I saw that in the community, people who have contributed their money with their soul, with their gratitude, with humility, people who have contributed time and volunteer with their soul. That's how the community is being created. Whatever people give, whatever they have, some people have both. What is my enoughness?
Mm-hmm.
I have to connect with my enoughness, and from my enoughness, understand that my enoughness comes from chesed, from loving kindness, and to give it with the purpose of contributing whatever is it that we want to contribute. But we need to connect with our enoughness.
Beautiful. We're over time, but I do want to ask you, because it came up, people really appreciated the nigun at the end. And I'm pretty sure I recognize that melody from a High Holiday piyut. Am I right?
It's Ose Shalom. No,
It's Ose
Shalom Bivroman. And that we use it for Leil Orech Din in BJ.
Yes, that's what I recognize. Orech Din. That's where I was picking it up. Okay.
So we
you.
use it for many things.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
All right, Marcelo, as
Thank
always,
you so much.
big treat to have this opportunity to learn with you and sit with you today. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for being here. Rachel, thank you for holding our space, and Karen for sponsoring us. Hope to see you tomorrow to practice with Daniel Raphael Silverstein, everyone. Be safe and well today. Many blessings.